So we're here once again with Jacqui Fatka, policy editor with Farm Futures and Feedstuffs magazine. Thank you for enlightening us today about what is going on in the U.S. Dairy market or dairy industry. We've heard the word, and about a month ago, the World Dairy Expo. There was a lot of hubbub about this farm bill and what's contained in the farm bill, and so we're going to talk a little bit about the word supply management in the American sense, because of course in Canada it's always a popular topic, but the word has been used in the U.S. recently in policy discussions. So tell us a little bit about, Jacqui, where we're at with supply management in the U.S.
Well, the dairy program that is in the Farm Bill workings right now, both in the Senate and in the House, is called the Dairy Security Act, and it combines two components for helping producers. One part is a margin insurance program, and it's a voluntary program that producers can do, and it helps them balance some of the just basically protect their margin. It's a feed. It's got a calculator to figure out the price of milk in comparison with feed costs, and then they have an insurance program that they can buy for that. Now, that's one part of the program, and if they voluntarily enroll in that, then they have to participate in the what's called the Dairy Market Stabilization Program. And that's right, there's a stabilization component of that, and it's a mandatory thing. So if they decide to do the margin insurance, they have to do the stabilization component. And basically, that stabilization is if milk production reaches a certain level, then they will actually get penalized by getting less money for their milk for it. So in some ways, they argue that it's not a stabilization program, it's actually a disincentive program. So it's discouraging more milk production if milk production is high. Right. So in order to stabilize production, it would actually disincentivize. But there is quite a bit of controversy down here as to whether that is needed, and whether it returns U.S. policies to more of a socialist, communist type approach. It was a really interesting debate when the House Ag Committee took up this bill, because we did see some amendments and some attempts to change that program.
Right, and so just to clarify, this program is part of the Farm Bill that's making its way through, we hope, at some point. But there are those who want to essentially, I don't want to use the word decouple, but they're okay with the first part. They're okay with the insurance type program, which basically dairy farmers could pay for added protection to their margins. They're okay with that portion, but there are groups that disagree that you automatically then have to be rolled into this stabilization program. And so what is or can you tell me a bit about what the amendment is? Essentially just to make it voluntary or to scrap it entirely? Do you know kind of where that sits?
The amendment actually takes out the stabilization component. Okay. So it essentially leaves the margin insurance part of the proposal in there, right, and takes out the stabilization, which there's actually some research that shows originally that stabilization part was put in there kind of keep costs down, because they didn't want to be giving a whole bunch of money and then all of a sudden be paying more when the supplies went up. So right, in a sense, this program the stabilization component was first introduced to kind of keep costs down. Now that they've had some more time to do some studying of it and to see how the impact would be, they may not need that stabilization component. And from what I've heard from sources is that stabilization component, it was very controversial up until this point. Dairy producers, even though the proposal, the Dairy Security Act, was introduced by Colin Peterson, the House Ag Committee ranking member. He's from Minnesota, he's usually behind dairy producers. He's been very involved in that. This proposal was from the National Milk Producers Federation, which is the largest milk group down here. So they do have a lot of dairy producers that are supportive of it, but then there's also folks that are still on the line on whether and dairy processors are against it. So you do have this kind of mix of who's for it and who's against it, but even within that, not everybody on the NMPS membership is right, extremely behind this. And the dairy processors, they're concerned that if a government program comes in and all of a sudden tells producers not to produce milk, that they're going to have a shortage. And really, when it comes down to it, for U.S. producers, their mentality is improvement and trying to make technology to produce the most milk. And so, one of the main arguments was, why in the world would we try to really punish those who are producing more? Because in some sense, that's what it would end up doing. You would produce, say you produced 1 gallon more per milk per cow or something. I mean, that's not a very good number, but if you were to all of a sudden increase your production, you're gonna see a hit on your milk prices just because you're producing more.
Right.
In the margin insurance, there's nothing like that right now. It's similar to a feed program right now that we have called Milk, that gives them kind of a some help on feed costs, but it's just for a certain number of cows, where this program would be an unlimited amount.
Right.
So there are some slight differences there, but the big thing is the processors are concerned that it's going to increase cost to them if all of a sudden the government comes in and sends production way down when they still need the milk. And also, too, on exports wise, if all of a sudden we're saying don't produce as much milk, but then we need more milk for our export markets, then how quick can we ramp things up? And is that really the type of system that we want to have?
Right. Okay. All right. Well, we'll be following along, as always, up here in the frozen north. So thank you so much, Jacqui, and we'll talk again.
All right. Thanks so much, Lyndsey. Bye-bye now.